We're back. So yeah. So just quick heads up. This what I'm gonna say might trigger a few people, and yeah, that's okay because what's it called? Um, yeah, just throw out what you feel, and whatever you agree on with, that's fine. You want to throw your own opinion here? Hey, throw it down there in the comment sections if I remember to activate the comment section. So we'll do that. And yeah, so got a lot of reminders for you. All right. So the first thing that I've noticed is define define your shit before you speak. And that's very important because that could determine like a lot of things, especially as the conversation continues. Like what I've also noticed from a meeting a few days ago with this dude who was reading some of my stories on the aerodrome. I realized like he said that at the bottom, normally at the top or at the bottom, I would have things that would be labeled so that the conversation could flow, especially as I go into the article. And that's something I just kind of hit me again as I'm writing a couple of some content, like 3-4 minute articles of content on the basics of the premises of nanomaterials, and then a little bit of effective altruism that I'll talk a little bit later. And I also realized like, yo, like that does make sense because you would do want to set the tone and also define what you want to speak or label before you speak. So like one example would be something with Greek. I'm going to use the Greek letter lambda, or the L shape thing. You've probably seen that in like math, physics papers, and which is funny because like you would have to define what you're trying to use the letter L, because like L like for me now I have like many definitions of L. Like here's just two examples, and this is what we would need to define before we continue. So whenever I see the letter L, like the Greek letter L, am I thinking, okay, how are we going to define this? Are we talking about the Greek letter L as in like regular vocabulary, like maybe like words like lachos, which is yeah, which is basically like false. So you can say sosto I lathos, so that's like true or false Greek. Or you can say like, okay, we're using the Greek letter lambda for like wavelength of a specific light for optics, which is something that is used in optics, especially when you're trying to find like if you're for what is it, transparency or like absorption and all these things. But that's what lambda would be used, just like the wavelength of light. So those are two different ways that the defining before speaking would go on. So that's just another thing. That's why I also mentioned to myself, put that trigger alert, because there will be some things that I will be talking about. But I also realized now that I'm saying this, I wasn't very specific about what to be triggering about. But yeah, I just basically mentioned my thoughts. But I got a whole paper here, so I'm just going off by the way I was writing them prior to the recording. But yeah, that's one thing, to find stuff before you speak. And something I'll remind myself when I write is like, don't try and save it to the end. Try and save it to the beginning, especially if there's something that could get like mixed emotions or mixed perceptions. Definitely like, okay, we're gonna set the tone here and we're gonna define it before you proceed, because for some people it will have totally different things. Because now I sometimes wonder like what the Greeks think every time they see like their own letters in like physics. Like, wait, what the fuck? But yeah, so definitely defining stuff would definitely help a lot. Anyway, and yeah, another thing that defining stuff is like the way you say stuff is like the way you think of it. So like so one example for like this is, you could say, oh well, like like if you don't have a, like, let's say you don't have a car, like once you start driving or whatever, it's like, well yeah, if you don't have a car, then you're just like, like a little piece of shit or whatever. It's like, okay, well that's something that you're putting in yourself to define. So it's like that, if you were that person, then that's how you would feel, like little crap. And so yeah, there's just like a couple of examples, although that's probably not the best way of thinking it. But yeah, just like the way you say shit is just literally the way you think of that thing. Especially if it's like something nonchalant or it's very something serious. So like, even if, for example, a certain situation, like, okay, you may have a bad grade in there, but like if you just like, okay, it's okay, we'll proceed from there, instead of going in all panic mode where you're like, oh no, it's going to hurt me. For it really just depends on how you think of that thing. Is it something that, okay, yes, it's a flag that can be easily corrected if we're calm and we have the mental mental cognition and mental awareness of realize, okay, like yes, it's my fault, but there are definitely better steps, like asking for forgiveness now instead of permission, which that at least in that point that would be it. Whereas if you were to just panic, everything for you is just red flag. So yeah, the way you would say things. So like, especially when you think of like, oh no, grades is gonna kill me. It's like, yeah, that's what you think. But for some people, it's like, hey, it's not the end of the world either because I already been through more than you to realize like, yeah, that's like nothing. Um, and that's actually a funny thing is with experiences is I actually don't feel like 17. I mean, like biologically, yeah, I got the mustache. It's growing. Trying to grow a beard, by the way. But everything's just been delayed, so I don't know what's happened. But yeah, I don't feel 17. I kind of feel like I feel like 4 years old. And the reason why I feel like that is just like I feel like I started actually feeling like 1 years old is once like I started having this like mental awareness that like okay like like you got to grow up, you got to do stuff, you got to have have experiences. I think that's like something that just kind of popped into my head, and then like you start accumulating age numbers by the amount of things that you do, and like also like yeah, that's the thing is like now that I feel more self-aware, I can start like building things and then just like figuring out to myself what actually matters to me. Whereas like it's just like listening to my instead of like listening to what my parents think or what my friends think or what like other acquaintances think about. It's like just figuring out what to care or what I find valuable, what to build. And so like, like one thing, one not one thing, but like, think of many things, but eventually you realize, okay, I gotta pick one or just do one thing. Um and not like literally like do it all your life, but it's just like, you will find that niche and it's like, yeah, let's do it. And then also like just being committed in something, just not interested, because you like definitely explore. Like this is why you're in your teenage years. Like explore if you want, but if you found something that you want to be committed for a good amount of time, you'll gain the experience, and that's how that's why I mean like I feel like I'm like 3, 4 years old in terms of either maturity or experience or like awareness and stuff. It's like okay, now we're starting to feel more like we're getting there. We're getting there. And then producing things obviously because that also builds like the knowledge, and then just like okay, you make mistakes in the process. That's something that that's being willing to share. Um, and yeah, like no duh, you do need to go through some shit to grow. So it's like, which ironic is like yeah, like which is just acquire as much as some. This is an extreme here, but just like acquire as much experience ASAP, also known as your level of discomfort, to like stop feeling like you're like 1 or 2 years old or what make people might say you're left behind. It's like how much comfort are you willing to sacrifice for your future self? So like because I felt 15, but I felt like somewhat still zero, like or maybe 1 year old, but like that's another thing. Like I just feel like I don't know enough, right? I'm not experienced enough. And yes, and like yeah, and even with like open heart surgery and like um and with depression, all this is like I somehow just don't feel like that in some past experiences. So, which is something strange, but I don't know if anyone has been feeling like that, where they feel like they're 17, but they somehow just feel so like young or like inexperienced, but then also just feel like so old, as in like I have to decide my niche now. It's like no, like this is the perfect age to like build, build, yeah, just like build, gain your experiences without like having the total destruction of your future. Like that's the good thing about being a kid is you can kind of do whatever you want without having to suffer like a total consequence. So definitely try and gain as much experience as you can ASAP, especially if you're in high school or whatever. Perfect time. Like I mean, and you could, and some people will say this: I don't know how to start. That's the first thing. And then the other will be, I just can't finish it. Sometimes you don't need to finish stuff. It's like reading. It's like a Netflix show. It's like if it sucks, why are you gonna finish it? You don't. If a book sucks, why are you gonna finish it? You don't. So with that, but for something that you really do care about, there are two things that will just end it: is failing to start and just failing to finish it. That's also one other thing. And about communication, just like how to how to set the tone and stuff. Like something that I've realized with with language again, like I love talking about it. It just made me more aware of how I use my words, not just like in this language, but also how people would use it in other languages. Like you probably know that in in Mexican Spanish, there's a good amount of words that of like shit words. And they're kind of using daily vocabulary. Hey, that's how we talk. Not all of us. Okay, I'm not trying to label stereotype here. But it comes out. But in other cultures it's different. So it just makes people more aware of how do you actually structure and set the tone, and also like give definition or define something before speaking. That's just an interesting fact. But anyway, I think you could chase happiness, just not directly. I feel like with chasing for happiness, it's this giant desire, but it can also be broken down into tons and tons of desires. When you have so many things that you're focusing on, of course, that's a desire to complete it. You kind of put this thing on yourself as in, if I don't achieve this, I will never have or I need to do this in order to be satisfied. But at least for me, what I realized is, okay, you're in this equation of kind of life. You know how like I must achieve this thing so that I can, like have some freedom or just have this satisfaction or have the ability to buy this stuff. It's that equation of like I have to do this in order to, achieve this. Like it feels like a video console. It's like, or like a game. It's like you must beat this to go on to the next level. It's like, why don't you just like exit the game, or like don't even play it? Or this is the same thing with exit the equation. I'm just thinking of that. It's like, what if we do things just because it is? You know, yeah. I'm do wondering that is like some desires that we do have is like we have to do this in order to do that. Because I will be honest, I have asked myself like I need to do this to like give meaning either my community or like my school and like that, but especially where I am. But like just asking yourself or asking myself is like, why does it have to be that? Or why do you have to do this to make it meaningful? Like why not just do you and do what is? And that probably would be a lot better ways. Like it frees you from expectations. So if you're currently restricted or you currently bear some expectations that either you don't want to bear, or two, it's like they just kind of gave it on you, then like yeah, definitely exit the equation. Just like you don't know anyone anything, or like the majority of people anything. um but yeah, we all try to add meaning to stuff, and yes, like please add a bit of meaning in there. And yeah, this kind of sounds maybe a smidge nihilistic, which I kind of am. Like I do believe in like, okay, we do stuff, the end of the day doesn't matter. So it's like, which in my opinion, it's wonderful. It's like do whatever you want. No one's going to tell you anything. It's like, if you want to start your own NFT business, like yeah, who the fuck cares about what your dad thinks? Like just go for it. You want to try and make a music band? Well, yeah, like my opinion don't matter. Give it a shot. Give it a shot. Like, you're gonna die anyway, so give it a shot. Give it a shot. You got nothing to lose. It's the same thing with me. It's like I was thinking about, okay, if you want to figure out what's the best problem in like material science or whatever to solve, especially at this young age, just give it a shot. What the hell's gonna happen to you? Well, yeah, you're gonna die like everyone else. So why not just give it a shot? So if you want to, for me, I feel like indirectly, you can chase happiness indirectly. with somewhat of, like maybe less desires. Less desires is good enough. At least you can channel. You can channel this need, like this. I need to change happiness, at least in some direction, without having to go in like all these different directions that eventually will lead you to the same outcome, which is you die. So yeah, just less desire. At least for me, just less desires. Definitely channel in that this potential energy. Channel it, pick it in one or two directions. Otherwise, just one, and just go for it. But yeah, we could definitely indirectly chase happiness with like, taking care of your good mental health, your social health, physical health, and like, stuff that you care about. But yeah, what's it called? Yeah, I don't think everything happens for the best, but we can make the best of everything. So, which is something that like just keep that in mind. It's like, every like stuff happens in life. Not everything happens for the best. Just make the best of what happens. There's also a caveat to what I said there. It's like, just do whatever you want because at the end of the day, nothing matters. That would kind of bring us back to, okay, well, why don't you just like smoke weed every day? uh Shit, now Snoop Dogg in my head. But yeah, like you still want to think long term, definitely. So like even with all the projects that you might want to think of doing, there's also a compromise to that. So you could say let's directly build, or you can say let's just start with our base, which in exchange you're not building everything, but you compromise with, okay, yeah, the compromise is, okay, you're not building anything, but you're setting up where the pyramid or this tower would be, so that once it's done, you can go up. While the person was trying to build, it's like, okay, they got to build the pieces, like they got to focus on the base, then they got to go back up, and then they got to go back up. But it's like if you channel it all in one place, it's like, oh my god, now you can build a skyscraper. So some people could say like, yes, trial and error, but I would never do trial and error on my foundation. Like that's for me personally. I would never do a trial and error on my foundation. I would rather build the biggest base of a building or a pyramid in the world, and then like let's do trial and error there, because let's say even if it does fall, I still have my base. Although I probably don't want like a 20 story building collapsing and just having the base, but at the end of the day, I can still like rebuild because I still have that foundation. But I would probably, if I were to probably do something that required building up there without a strong base, everything would just collapse. So I think like you do definitely want to think long term with every decision that you have, because once one thing goes down, it's just like, does that. And for those who are wondering, like, how were you able to think about all of this for the past 6-7 months? I wasn't really focused on my material science and stuff journey. I was exploring a lot, which meant I got to speak a lot, like boast a lot, which is something that I've noticed is like when you're in explore mode, you talk a lot, but you don't walk the walk, which is, I mean, when you're in explore mode, obviously that's going to happen, but you don't want to be stuck in there for too long, because then you feel like, I'm the best, I'm gloating. So it's like, you got to figure out your niche. I would say kind of quick. It's not a good place to just be there and like just jumping from one thing to another. It's like like just bouncing from one social media to another. It's like you get a bunch of this crap and then a bunch of this crap and then a bunch of this crap. You probably know the place. And if you just probably pick with one way to get your BDA, it's like, okay, at least I can channel this in and like figure out what's important. Whereas you're bombarded with all this shit. And I realized that I genuinely want to solve problems. So that's also another reason why I'm back here. And I felt like I just felt so free. Like, I don't know. I just feel so genuinely happy, like just going this route. Like, just never felt more fulfilled. So, like any other project that I had at this point, like I will be honest, I'm not gonna like I don't care. I'm not gonna add emotion to it. I know some people will, but I just don't attach any emotion to that. And like just figure out what else to put emotion to that. That takes tension capital away. Just that's also another thing. Shit talking. One thing that I've noticed um, is I've noticed that people only shit talk when people only shit talk about other people who are kind of who are basically better than them. I mean, that's just a reminder. That's not something like kaboom, but it's just like a reminder. It's like you only should talk about people who are actually better than you. If they're at the same level as you, you'd be competing against. So yeah, you'd probably still be thinking all the time, but they technically could be better. You're just at the same level, but if they're good here, and maybe a couple of meat on their bones. It's like, okay, yeah, they'll probably fuck you up. But you never think about someone who's below you, unless they come up to you and say, "Be like, hey, yo, like, please help me out or give me advice." Like, okay, sure. But you barely even think about them. You don't even know they. You probably don't even know they exist. You're probably you may have a good community or a good squad right now. It's like you probably don't even know like any of them, even if it's like a smaller and smaller bunch of people. It's like you probably only know like 5, 10 people, and either A, it's because like you have something aligned towards each other, or because at the same level. But like, or maybe it's because you don't really know, you haven't really figured out who they are. It's probably because there's too many or whatever. But it's like the not mind blowing, but it's just like interesting. It's like you only talk shit about other people if they're better than you. Like, why do you think we got all these critics on like Messi Ronaldo? It's like, oh no, you guys are pussies. I'm like, or something like, oh, you should have passed to that boy. He could have scored. But like, it's like, but yeah, if you were probably in their shoes, you'd probably be like, hey, yeah, fuck you. I'm better than you. It's like, it's funny. It's funny just like, about that. And also with friendships, this is gonna be a triggering one, but all friendships do kind of rely on something to form a bond. Could be anything from like sports. Some friendships are from sports. Some can go from just going to clubs, drinking weed, and some from like aligned goals or aligned vision or something like that, or a project. I don't know. But I guess just pick those things that go for the long term for a good relationship and have that like good brotherhood. I don't know. I feel like true friendships, or at least true friendships that I would consider people like brothers, my friends, like true brothers. Like we have goals that are both aligned, like 5 years in the future, like that goal would still be in us 5 years in the future if nothing disastrous were to happen that would force us to change our priorities. This from what you've probably been seeing in the world at this point with Russia and Ukraine, it's like anything can happen. Your priorities could change from one day to the other, and it just blows my mind that I actually said this like 3, 4 weeks ago in a video, and like your life could change and you should be grateful for that. And now here the fuck we are. Like I see this news all the time with the Russian Ukraine. I'm like, wow. Like, I'm just so privileged. Like, yeah, just so privileged, so grateful. It's like to just hear the news, not like be in there. I mean, if I was there, I mean, yeah, definitely fight for your country. Like for me, like I would fight for my country. Like you only get one country. It's like go, those are your people. That's your brothers. You go fight. But yeah, like I'm not in that situation right now, so I'm like, jeez, like anything changed in an instant. But yeah, that was a tangent quickly, but yeah, just pick like those the long term, things. That's the good brotherhood there, because let's say you get off alcohol, and the rest aren't. Well, that was in a long friendship. But, if you align something with towards the future vision on like building something together, or like I don't know, like minting NFTs. I don't know, whatever you want, but like that's gonna get you far. So yeah, give that's just one thing I've noticed. Just like it all relies on something, but the best ones are more dependent on like future, like long term stuff, because that's where the real juice comes out. Speaking of future stuff, or just wanted to like feel what it'd be like to be a billionaire, like, or like not even a millionaire, just like a child, where you're like, I want to be free. It's like not have anything, not any worries about. At least for me, I don't really feel like that. Like I sometimes ask myself, like, if I do have the money, I can be free. It's like, and that's what I meant by defining things. Like, what does it mean for me to be free? Like, free of what? Free of like, um, being discriminated by color, or like freedom as in like financial independence, or like, like mental health independence. Like, what does it mean? But like, at least for the first order of freedom, because there's the first order, second order, and the third order of what I mean by freedom. But I think this is going to be generalizing, but for the majority of people, when they say I want to be free, like immediately, the first order of free, what I conclude is, I think what we want is just like these like large and infinite amount of options, and we can voluntarily decide which of these options to pick. Like one thing is like with with maybe if you're in senior, you can pick certain classes. It's like you're technically not 100% free, like, which is what we're trying to define here, but you're somewhat there. It's like, okay, you can pick certain things, like, if you want to do creative writing, or like, um or an extra sport, or meditate, or whatever. It's like, okay, you can do that. But I think, what we want is just like, that financial independence. So it's like, okay, now we have all these options, because like it wouldn't probably be a good thing, like just not have absolutely nothing to do and just like have all this money. But I'm just thinking of that. Like, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a multimillionaire. It's like, okay, if I have all this money, like, even if I have all these options, or like maybe if I didn't have all these options, because like, like when you're probably broke, it's like, okay, you got this one choice, if you want to go there, it's like, okay. But probably once you're there, it's like, it's not maybe the money that you want, it's just like the options. So, or maybe that's a millionaire. I don't know. Like, just I just don't want to feel like shit, even with like all of this. Just like maybe having a bunch more options. It's like, okay, now I want to pick. Like, I want to voluntarily pick the outcome. But just in case if it all goes wrong, I still have, this giant cash money just saved. And I think that's also a funny thing. It's like just like picking, voluntarily having the options to pick something, and then just like having this like net of money that can save you. It's kind of like, with a kid. It's like, or at least for a teenager, just like a young kid, it's like you can do whatever you want, and you have net, this like net of like being responsibility free, or just like, having your parents love and money, to save you. So maybe when you break an arm on the monkey bars, or like, or I don't know, you break your phone or whatever, or like you crash your car before you're 18. Okay, yeah. But yeah, maybe. And another thing with money is like, I feel that's also nothing why I like my ebook a lot, is I never did that for money. Like, I mean, I'm a kid. I don't really need money at this point. Although it probably would be a good idea. Yeah, I don't want to go into debt, but but yeah, like, yeah, I just wonder what my content would be like if I did it for money. I just kind of did it for like, one, myself, and then just like, try and give value to like like some material scientist student who had his fourth cup of coffee at 2 in the morning. Like, I don't know. Or maybe some like founder who's like, oh, maybe this kid's interesting, he should write for us. I don't know. But yeah, like, yeah, I just wonder, maybe like, I feel like when you do shit for money, it's like you're desperate or something like that. But do it for value, I feel like it hits different. Or just like doing it for, I want to, you know, it just hits. I probably would hit different. But anyways, this is the best part. So the effect of altruism. I've been starting to think a little bit about material science and nanotechnology at its literal basis. Because look, like everything around us is made out of materials, like the computer, the phone that is recording the audio, the shitty lights that are up here. Because this is definitely not camera worthy for YouTube, but I'm not doing it for YouTube. I'm just doing it to share stuff. Book. I can easily tear this book, but I don't want to. This is valuable for me. Glass of water, which I forgot to drink. The material, it's strong. I can't break it. At least right here, no. Cap, easily bendable. Some good polymer. Can I rip it? No idea. This is probably kind of tough. Paper, hell yeah, I can definitely break this. The bonds aren't strong. I don't give a crap. But yeah, everything's made out of materials, and the basis of all this is like it's chemistry. Like at least for me, I like to think that the foundation of like all of this stuff, minus AI, is like chemistry, just pure chemistry. Physics just like describe whatever the hell's happening, and then math is like the good way of explaining stuff, which is also important. But I like to think chemistry is the fundamental base. But fiddle with the basics, and you can create anything out of anyone's imagination. Like with anything, like some of our human body base is this body, like our physical muscles and whatever. It can go good or bad. Like if you build the body big, well, yeah, you're gonna get like some Greek god body. It's like, oh, what the? It's like like one of you gain my respect. That's no easy task. But yeah, it's just like comes up with these ginormous benefits. Who knows? You could probably become a model or whatever, and then there's your living. So you never know. Or you could go the other way. Yeah, you smoke, you drink for 20 years, and now look at you. You're dead. I think. I don't know. I mean, Snoop Dogg's not dead yet, so don't do that. But yeah, sorry Snoop Dogg for abusing you in this video. If I get canceled here, this is on you for the Super Bowl before you smoke. But yeah, that's that. That's that for like those things. But the effective altruisms, I'm thinking like either A, there's two things I'd be concerned with nanomaterials. A, we're gonna have like this nanobot factory, or like this production of like things at the nanoscale that can like penetrate our body, or like like give us chaos. What type of chaos? I have no idea. It could go from like like carrying a virus, like, and then just like saying to your body, honestly, who the hell knows? Or like just like damaging things. Or the second one, which I'm a little bit more concerned about, is a material that can destroy anything, like materialistic, like from a book to a laptop. So like pretty much anything. Like they're kind of like strange math. Like it's definitely possible. Like fiddle around with the basics good enough, you can do anything. Like I just saw this article, which was sent by some dude in Slack, which was some people who were able to make soda out of just like atoms or something. I'll put the link down later. And then like someone who turned a glove into hot sauce. How the fuck do you do that? But like if that's possible, then yeah, like someone creating a nanomaterial, like some goo or whatever, like I would definitely be concerned there. But like that's also another reason why I love this problem. It's like it's on the fundamentals. Like if I know how to manipulate this well, which I'm using aerogel as a starting point, why? Because I love that material. That's definitely a feature material. But I want to see how I can push that further, or at least create my own new thing. But definitely, yeah. Who knows where that will take us? Fiddle around with the basics a lot, and you can build anything out of your own wildest dreams, for the better or for worse. That's just one thing to be concerned about. But yeah, like I'm definitely very optimistic with the way materials going, because with materials you can push the boundaries of humanity forward. All the things that you have from these, like over marketed Apple iPhones for 1.2K, like yeah, that's material there. Like the copper and the steel and like all this iron and all this stuff that we got all around us, it's because thanks to materials, and sometimes where they were made by accident. So in some way, humanity depends on materials to push forward. I do want to be a part of that and make sure we push humanity forward without the catastrophes that I do think is possible. So if you were to ask me what would be the most important thing for humanity this century, it wouldn't be, like build the future. 'Cause what's the point of building the future? We're all fucking dead. So I would say the thing we would have to do is survive. Like, let's make sure we evade the worst of the catastrophes that could happen in this 21st century. We can survive, then yes, let's push forward. But I'm not saying that we should just focus like, well, the good thing would be just like focus on surviving. You know, definitely let's resolve problems while we do it. But we definitely need a good community where, okay, the point is like, okay, what are those bad catastrophes? How do we evade with consulting or building things that would prevent them? It's like AI, nanotech, like yeah, AI and material science, like those would be my biggest two concerns because that's the fundamentals of stuff. Like AI is just like AI doesn't need no explanation. It's something that this modern world definitely is now a big cost. But with viruses and material sciences, like and chemistry, like that's the basis. That's the basis of everything. The laws of chemistry, laws of physics. If you know how to fiddle with those and make something out of it, work. Yeah. So those are my things for yeah for this podcast. And yep. And the last thing here, which I'm gonna piss people off here, but yep. From the way I've been using Twitter, at least, this is just the way, like, I love knowledge and stuff, but at least from the way I've been using my own Twitter has kind of become like Pornhub of knowledge. And sometimes it will be contagious, like so much input going in, like you're thinking of many things and you're trying to do many things. It's like, no, you think of many things, just do one thing. Just channel in there. You'll get distracted. That's your attention capital. Don't waste it. And like today I averaged 33 minutes on Twitter. For me, that's a lot. For you guys, you'd be like, what the hell? That's good. Yeah, it's not. I'd rather be just 15, 20 minutes. For me, is acceptable. But yeah, that's just one thing. Maybe this is probably maybe just for like intellectual, or not intellectual, just people who use Twitter the way I do, which is, like I kind of gain knowledge from there. I gain some wisdom there, but I also hate that the fact that you remove context. So like when someone tweets something, you don't know, what the hell were they thinking when they were doing it, or what were they doing at the moment? What experience did they go through it? That's sometimes what I've seen in some of my tweets. Like I have to kind of explain because there's always going to be this one person's like, no, you're the fucking wrong. Like, okay, chill. Like, rethink differently, which is okay, which is good. Like, let's have conflict. But it's like, also it's hard to explain because you remove the context. It's like makes you better at like it just makes you better at explaining things. You have to realize like you got to set the tone, you got to label things, you got to define things, but you just remove a lot of context out of it just to make sure it fits. There's a dilemma there, but yep. For any person who uses Twitter the way I do, which is like knowledge and just like sharing stuff and like all this intellectual shit, if you like to call it, be careful. Twitter can probably become your next Pornhub, and you're not even having to open the actual site. So, but yeah, that's that. Anyway, see you all in a couple days. Ciao.